and that really, really showed in their passion and their work ethic. And Matt Patton, he's retired. It was his first year pro. He gave it a go. He enjoyed it, but I think he's got a relationship with his girlfriend Brittany back home, and he wanted to train to be a fireman. So I think for him, like, the year of playing hockey was good fun, but then he wanted to get back to real life.
And another player I thought that you might have brought back and still hasn't, his future hasn't been decided, was Grant Tillman. He's still over in Australia, I think, isn't
he? Yeah, so he and Paul Swindlehurst have both been playing in Sydney for Sydney Ice Dogs and been on the same line, and together they've worked really well. On my podcast, one of the last podcasts we did, I just got 4 of the players and said, look, would you come back? And I got the impression he was very, very, very keen to come back. He was a fan favourite. I think fans are really surprised because we've only got 1 space left on our roster, and hopefully that won't be announced by the time this goes out for you. And everyone, I put a tweet out earlier saying I was doing this interview with you guys, and you were asking about the roster so far and what do fans think, and everybody, the messages that come back, we want number 21. It's great, but someone's missing, Grant Tillman. So, but I just think the ship sailed. I think that we've got other people can do his role. You look at people like Matt Bissonnette, Taylor Dickin, they're kind of tall guys who could get the goals in, but also get in the dirty areas. And Grant was good sometimes at getting the goals in, depending on which line he was on. He kind of went up and down, but he wasn't so great at getting in the dirty areas. And people kind of assumed that because he was so tall that he would do that, but I don't think he was so strong on that side of things. And I wonder, looking at the roster that we've got so far, we know Neil Russell, with his Belfast background, loves that kind of dirty, meatier kind of player. And I don't know whether Grant fits into the new kind of Manchester Storm for this season, so who knows?
Last season you had established Brits in the league like Davy Phillips and Matty Davis, and they're known throughout the league, GB internationals, and you're going to get types of players. Jack Prince and Adam Harding are maybe not as well known, but how do you think they're going to fit in? Do you think they'll be able to come in and do as well as the Brits had last year? Or do you think there'll need to be a bit of an adjustment period?
I think the first thing is that I've spoken to both Adam and also Jack, and they're really, really committed. They've been sold really by Pasha's kind of passion for and the vision for the team. Adam has played for the Storm before. I think he played a couple of games. One was around New Year last year, and he even scored a goal for Manchester Storm. So I think he'd already built up that relationship and must have stayed in Pasha's mind of thinking, I'm going to keep a lookout for him. And he's kind of been given a glowing reference from the fellow who runs Swindon Wildcats that he's basically going to soar when it comes to the league. I think he may have stood in and done a couple of Cardiff Devils games as well. Jack Prince, I suppose, is kind of let's just see what happens with him. I mean, he grew up, he was born kind of in Leicestershire. He trained through the junior system of Nottingham. So he has played, on the rinks and the kind of style that other Brits that are in the league have also grown up with. And he's kept in contact with a lot of people that he trained from an early age with. The fact that he's kind of, been over to University of Alabama, and he's kind of went and got the best training, because if you think when you're 18, 19, if you're a British ice hockey player, where do you go to kind of get that solid training and, be with the pros and stuff? Sometimes that's where people say here that's lacking in our country. So I think he'll be fine, and he certainly sounds like he's exciting in a way. He says he's kind of coming home. And
we couldn't not mention Eric Nielsen, but since he's signed, he's really caught the imagination of the Manchester fans. A really tough guy. Do you think he'll be able to conduct himself a bit better on the ice than maybe Didi Omite was last year?
I think you can't put these two guys in the same category. I mean, Eric Nielsen is just, just so high up in the sky. He's such a nice guy. I mean, just so cool. And from what I understand, that Neil and Omar had been, kind of hunting him for quite a long time. They'd wanted him on board. I don't know whether it was last year, but he couldn't quite do it. I think he was kind of waiting to see what was happening with playoffs as well, because he's been over in Missouri Mavericks. But, I mean, he's just got an incredible amount of experience. To kind of get him and announce that signing early on must have unlocked so many more players who know kind of through the AHL and ECHL leagues who Eric Nielsen is. But also just the fact that I think that's the type of franchise player that certainly Neil wanted, to kind of give the fans the type of guy that would interact with them. And I think on the ice, when I did my interview with him, it was incredible, actually, because he was really open, he was frank, he was honest. He cares, he's got emotion, and he's very much of the idea that, look, whatever beef happens on the ice, I don't take it off with me. If I'm, have the fight and sent off, then that's it, I'm off. You're not necessarily going to have all the, pantomime kind of activities that maybe we got from Deeds. But the fact that he's also met several people in the league already, dropped the gloves with them, just makes it even more exciting, I think.
Yeah, I think last year we kind of saw a Storm team that was relying on their offence. Just by the way you're talking, obviously you think it's going to be different this year, a wee bit more. The key, I hate the word grit, but everybody talks about grit and that wee bit of toughness. Do you think we're going to see a bit more of that for Manchester this year?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like I say, 11 of our players are over 6 foot. That's going to help. They're bigger, they're tougher. You look at the way of, Patrick Valkak is a forward. He's kind of come back, but you see how he's been training. I mean, he's been very good on social media, actually, and he is bulked out. He is, I imagine that Pash said, look, you're a great guy. He's actually in a relationship with someone locally now as well, so I guess that kind of ties into the area. But I imagine that he's kind of said, this is the type of role that we want you to be, and he's gone away and he's trained hard for that. But I was thinking kind of looking at some of the people who've played in our team. You look at someone like Paul Phillips. He's not the oldest of guys. I think maybe he's 24. I'm not quite sure. He's in his early 20s anyway, and he played 61 games. He got 15 goals, 53 points, and 45 penalty minutes. I mean, you compare that to someone like, Rick Jackman for your team. A guy who's played in NHL. He's done over 200 games in NHL. Yeah, he's 38, but he barely even touched the side when it came to like goals. Was it like 6? And you've got other people doing that. So I think. If our D don't have to be relied on so much to play goals, but actually get the chance to do their job of being defencemen, then that can only help cover it. Because we were short on D last year. It was tough. But you look at Sheffield, and half of their D is new as well. So you can only hope.
Only hope. Just question, what are your hopes for the Storm this year after last year? What do you think they can build on, and where you hope to finish this year?
I mean, we want to make playoffs. We need to be. Yeah, I'd love to get 7th. 8th would also be fine. Be an improvement. I'd love to even get through to the semis of Challenge Cup. We got to quarters last year, but playoffs is the big thing. To be able to go to Nottingham next April, and it was funny actually because there weren't that many Storm fans that came to playoffs this year because it was quite new, and people were just finding their feet. But to have this year, the word has got around that Storm fans need to come to playoffs. And if our team were there, I mean, like one of the guys who's tweeted me earlier, Anthony, says, can Storm be like the Leicester City, of the Elite League? Well, I don't know. I don't think we'll win the league. Because if you guys can't, then
the league's a different proposition, but the playoffs are there for anybody, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. And we saw how Coventry turned it around last year, and they look like they've got a good team as well. So, I mean, the key thing for me, the teams that I'm looking out for this year, I'm going to put Coventry to the side because I think that last year was a bit of a blip on their behalf. I'm looking at Edinburgh, Fife and Dundee. I think those are the danger teams for Manchester Storm. Edinburgh look like they're kind of well set up, a lot better than last year. So as long as we can kind of keep getting our wins against those teams and kind of keep in line points wise with them, I think that we can have even more success than we did last year.
Yep, and we wish you all the best of luck in that, don't we, Stephen?
Yeah, good luck, except against Clare, obviously.
Yeah.
That didn't even sound sincere.
It didn't, did it? I'm keeping that in.
You know what? Screw you, Stephen. I don't wish you any luck whatsoever.
I'm delighted to be joined now by Graeme Murdoch and Andrew Freeman of the Murdoch Hockey Blog, which is a podcast discussing all things Fife Flyers. How are you guys?
Very good, Ross. How about yourself?
Bad at all. Andrew, yourself?
Yeah, I'm very good, Ross, thank you.
I just want to talk to you about your expectations and, the guys that you've brought in, the guys you've lost. Obviously, starting with your goaltender, you brought Shane Owen in. He looks a good one, doesn't he, Graeme?
He does, yeah. I think in terms of his numbers in the last couple of years in the ECHL, I think he's as good as any netminder we've brought in, to be honest. It'd be interesting to see what his playing style is, because I know, obviously, last season, our netminder's playing style wasn't the one. It wasn't the type of style that certainly bred confidence. Whereas it's a new season, a new start. It'll be interesting to see how he actually fills out the net and how he fits in with the rest of the team.
I take it there was no chat at all, Andrew, about bringing David Brown back. Considering he did reasonably well for you last year.
No, I don't think there was. I never heard anybody say anything like, "Oh, he's definitely coming back." A lot of people said they wanted him back. A lot of people said they didn't want him back. He was one of these goalies that he split opinion. You either liked him or you didn't.
He was really popular with the fans.
He was always billed as a kind of playoff big game goalie, and that turned out to be the case, didn't it?
Definitely. That's exactly what he was, a playoff goalie. I can't remember him back at Hull at the start of the season with Hull, when he was at Hull. But he always done well. He'd done well for Hull at the end of the season and then at the playoffs. And then exactly the same in Fife. He started off very shakily in Fife. And then the turn of the year, he started to perform a bit better and getting into the playoffs. And he had 2 good games against yourselves in the playoffs. Not as good as Holt's.
I know, that's what I was going to say. It was Chris Holt's performance in that, certainly that first leg, that impressed me the most.
Yeah, he was very unlucky not to get. What was he? A minute and a half, 90 seconds from a shutout, wasn't he?
Yeah. I think he'd faced, up until that point, he'd faced 39 of 42 shots, and he'd dealt with all of them really well. And then obviously, it was the 2 from the last 3 shots that kind of swung the tie. But yeah, he was far more impressive in that tie than Dave Brown was, I thought.
Moving on to your decor at the moment, so far, you've only brought one guy back in Packy. There is you've got one guy left to sign. There's kind of talk, Delahaye, kind of talk, there might be somebody else. What's your feelings on that and the guys that have left and the guys obviously you've kept?
I don't think Delahaye's the answer. If we're talking one D-man left, I think it needs to be probably a different type of defenseman, certainly to Delahaye, whether it's a more physical one or whether it's one with a more high-end offensive output. But the loss of Kyle Haynes is massive. He's been a stalwart at the back for the Flyers for quite some time. Probably one of the most enjoyable defensemen I've seen play. And I'm going back like the almost 20 years now. I've been watching the Flyers. Probably one of the most enjoyable defensemen that I've watched in the Flyers jersey.
And was it just a case that Kyle just felt he wanted to change of scenery? Was that what the buzz was when he left?
Dukes came out on one of these interviews and said that when he found out that Hainsey and Nico weren't coming back, I think he was hoping he was going to come back, but I think the chance of France came up, and like after 3 years in Fife, he just thought, you know what, maybe a wee bit change of scenery, a different league, see another part of Europe. It's kind of what swung him in.
It was the lure playing with Ned Lukasiewicz again. Obviously, Ned didn't feel the same.
Ned agreed to go there first, and then he found out Hainsey was coming. He was like, no, I'm not going now.
And obviously, some of the big news, certainly concerning our podcast and the guys that listen predominantly to us, is the acquisition of Rick Jackman. That one kind of came out of left field. I know he's a big pal of Brendan Brooks, but even knowing that and putting it together, I suppose you could kind of see it. Was it a surprise to you guys that you took Rick Jackman on?
It was a surprise to me. I didn't expect that. If you were to say to me at the end of last season that we were going to get Rick Jackman in, I would have said no, thank you. But that was only from the games I'd seen him play for years against us. I didn't think he played at his best. You'll have seen more of him, so you'll have more of